Welcome to Charts Today. My name is David Linton, and today's edition for Tuesday, the 9th of October, comes to you from London. We start by looking at the dollar, still holding its strength. It's been pretty flat, really, over the last few months, but it is just holding on to these gains and just holding its short-term bullish position. So it's all about dollar strength. We're seeing here the euro still looking weak against the dollar below the cloud. Very much the classic sideways move, waiting for the next lurch down, although there's no really clear targets here on their short-term chart. So we're just in the doldrums a little bit. Dollar recovering a little bit against the yen. Yen was strong yesterday as a flight to safety, really. That often happens with the yen. And looking at sterling, we're seeing here that sterling is holding its position against the dollar, um, so short-term bullish. And interestingly, against the euro, sterling has made a medium-term transition and starting to look more bullish against the euro as well. Against the Swiss franc, sterling looking stronger here too, and against the Aussie dollar, we're seeing here sterling strength holding there too. So really is a feature across the board. We're just seeing that sterling strength and quite strong upside potential there. Looking at Bitcoin, very flat. We're short-term bullish, but medium-term and long-term bearish. Of course, markets had quite a rout yesterday. Recovered a little bit towards the end, so recovered. We're down 1.5% at one stage, but the S&P and the Nasdaq recovered at the end. Of course, that we are looking short-term bearish now on these markets, and the medium-term trends are still holding, but short-term bearish. The Dow also just short-term bearish, and the Russell 2000 index actually turning medium-term bearish. So that's quite interesting that we're seeing the broader base of US stocks now starting to look bearish. So that will weigh a little bit on the market. If we look at the futures this morning, the S&P future down 0.2%, suggests a lower opening, and the Nasdaq E-mini down 0.15%. So not clear cut opening lower, but it looks like that there's not going to be a sharp recovery. The FTSE 100 index we're seeing this morning is actually up slightly but sinking lower, really just a clear downtrend the last few days, and very clearly bearish below the cloud and starting to look worrying on the long-term chart as well. No clear downside targets. On the medium-term chart we do have some downside potential, some 3-4%. But on the long-term chart, still these upside targets in train. The short-term chart, again, no clear downside targets. The FTSE 250, however, we've hit a downside target that was given and now exceeded, so that's a bearish sign. We do have another downside target of 1.3%, and we're bearish below the cloud. So UK stocks really still receiving a battering. And we'll take a look at some of the individual FTSE stocks in a minute. The German DAX sinking lower again this morning, and so we are just seeing that weighing heavily. Of course, Italy is one of the main pressures that we're seeing. The CAC 40 also lower and just pushing below the cloud on the medium and short-term chart, and the Japanese market was actually significantly lower overnight as well. Hang Seng actually held steady, and the Chinese market, which was down 4% yesterday, actually just held steady, but still looking very bearish on that medium and long-term chart. The Indian market was down very slightly, and the Aussie market down some 1%. The stronger Aussie dollar probably not helping there. Brent crude is recovering this morning. We're back at $84.50, but we are still short-term bearish, but looks like we will recover that stance. And we're also seeing that with WTI. US nat gas rising more strongly, and we are seeing really nat gas now starting to look long-term bullish for the first time in a long time. Gold sank lower yesterday, back below the 1200 mark. We're 1188, 1189 this morning, and silver also struggling short term with downside potential of about 1.7%, $14.15. US 10-year yield sitting at 3.24%, so we are just seeing those climbing higher. And if we look at German bonds this morning, we are still lower there as well. Taking a look at the stocks, if we look at the US market, starting with the best performers, there were quite a lot in the end. So we did see quite a percentage of stocks rising, as much as 2% in some cases, bucking the trend. But of course, the real story was the downside. Tesla sinking lower still. This 250 level, which is absolutely critical for Tesla, now coming under pressure. That would lead to new 18-month lows, so that would be quite significant for Tesla. Taking a look at just some of the well-known stocks, Amazon was off 1.3%, still holding its trends though, and Apple also only in the end down 0.25%, so holding on to its strength. So we're seeing the large caps really holding the gains there, but the small caps being hit. If we look at some of the others like Microsoft down 1%, but still the trend's very much intact. Taking a look at the FTSE this morning, if we look for the best performers at the moment, Everaz Group is looking pretty strong. We're seeing this in commodities really. Glencore looking strong. Antofagasta, the leaders are the commodities. Anglo American, just really all four there. We're also seeing BHP Billiton, Rio, all in these upper marks here. Shell, BP, as you might expect, all looking quite strong on the higher oil price. On the converse side, we're seeing Sage down some 5% this morning, so looking quite worrying here with further downside targets some 7% lower. So Sage looking very worrying indeed. Royal Mail, its woes continue down a further 1.2% this morning. So really just a complete collapse in the price here. So a mixed picture. Utilities also looking a little bit lower here. National Grid, United Utilities. So keeping an eye on that. That's it for today. Until tomorrow. Happy charting. See you then.